This panel is called eTail Tonight, and we're going to cover global perspectives and how brands are adapting their user experience to kind of fit all the different regions that they sell around the world. So as borderless commerce becomes more ubiquitous and consumer demands become higher, how do you really sell globally and do it well? This panel of leaders and experts is going to go through, give tips and strategies on how they do that today. So before we get into questions, maybe each of you can give a brief introduction.
Sure. My name is Brian Best. I am head of e-com for G-Star Raw, a premium Dutch-based denim brand. I'm responsible for business development, P&L, and most recently, performance marketing.
Hi, I'm Ishneet Kaur, and I work in Gulf International in Dubai. So I'm establishing e-commerce in the GCC countries for brands like Johnson & Johnson, Henkel. Prior to this, I was in Flipkart, the pioneer of Indian e-commerce industry, where I got the opportunity to work across roles like spearheading the omni-channel strategy, strategic alliances for online customer acquisitions.
And I'm Diana Stuparu. I'm leading the business strategy at Bose Corporation here out of Massachusetts, along with e-commerce operations, customer journeys, customer experience, and responsible also for the business P&L. Also, I know I'm glancing over Bose, but I'm assuming almost everyone is familiar with our products. So at home, in the car, on the go, special venues. So any product questions, feel free to look up online.
Diana, let's start with you.
Yeah.
You oversee operations at Bose for both the Americas and Europe.
Yeah.
When you do that, how do you keep track of all the different values and from different cultures, and how do you highlight those through your digital marketing efforts and what you do through your e-commerce experiences?
Yep. So starting with customer insights, we have a large group of consumer insights analysts, and we operate in many countries in Europe, Americas, US, and Canada, soon also Mexico. But it's a different way actually to address customers in each country. So as much as we want to globalize our websites, our processes, the way we operate in terms of content, and there are differences by market. And through consumer insights, we are personalizing the shopper experience, personalizing also the shopping journey through cart, through checkout. Anything from payment methods to shipping methods are different by country.
Gotcha. Ishneet, let's turn to you for a quick second. You're establishing e-commerce in a very interesting part of the world in the Gulf region for top FMCGs. What are the top two or three things that in that region are really high values for shoppers?
So the region is very unique. So for example, it's leading in terms of internet penetration or smartphone penetration. We are leaders, even better than the global average. Having said that, even for credit card penetration, it's very high in this region. But still, it's really relying on cash on delivery, which is a typical sign of an emerging market like in India, where there are just 4% credit card penetration, but 80% COD. Here, we have more than 45% credit card penetration, but still very high COD. One more very interesting factor is that mall is a part of the social landscape in this region because it's a very important part of the service sector economy. So people are actually going to the retail sector. So omni-channel becomes really important over here. Now, if I compare the user experience throughout the path to purchase journey of a Middle East compared to a Western mature market, so the research and discovery part of it, people are going really high. For example, a 45% in Middle East compared to a smaller percentage in the Western world. But the moment I come to the purchase cycle, we drop out. We are just 12%. Having said this, the purchasing capacity is very high still. And people are researching more and more non-brand specific research. So what's important is in 2017, I think, was the pivotal year when Amazon came in and acquired Souk, and we had a local $1 billion venture called Noon, is when things just started accelerating, snowballing, and now e-commerce is becoming a part of integration, but there's a way to go before people actually start using it as a habit.
Gotcha. And Brian, with G-Star being based in Europe, what are some of the things that you do to adapt and meet the customer expectations here in North America?
So one of the ways that we look at how adaptation would work for the US, for example, when we look at the large millennial base as our customer, one of the things that culturally and their values apply to how we adapt our digital experience, we were looking at how millennial users barely use credit cards. 63% of them don't. They prefer to use their own cash. That said, we wanted to think about how they're leveraging the way that they spend money because of student loans, high rents as they come into the rental market. And so we wanted to offer them ways in which that they can possibly pay for our product. It's a premium denim brand. The product's a little bit more expensive. So we looked into companies like, for example, PayBright and Afterpay. I know that's a plug, but at the same time, we were actually going to be working with one of them, both for US and for Canada, in the sense that we can offer them for installation payments. They can get the product after making the first payment. They get the product immediately, no interest rate, no credit check. The third party assumes all of the risk. And for something like that, that's a way to really excite and engage our customers to want to keep making purchases with us. They can manage their finances that way. So that tweak and understanding that we have a pretty significant millennial base and how they manage money and their finances and how we can play a role in helping them manage that, that's something that other countries might not necessarily have with their millennial demographic necessarily. But from a US perspective, something like that takes root and it quickly takes off. And I remember anecdotally when we first talked about doing it, the then president of North America felt like we're not doing layaway was her reaction. And I was like, this is not layaway in the sense that you're not getting the product after you finish making your payments, you're getting the product right away. And again, we assume none of the risk. We don't have to chase these customers down. We are gonna get the money directly from the third party. And something like that made significant amount of sense for us.
Totally. Keep it right here with you, Brian. Like, let's say you're going to a new country, and for the retailers that haven't yet started to sell globally, how do you conduct accurate research and develop KPIs as you think about entering a new market?
So one of the things that we look at is that, do we have any wholesale partnerships in that region? So if we do, then we can kind of explore the product demand in that specific region. We know how our products are selling. We know which products resonate with which customers and which regions. So like South America, for example, if we were exploring the option of moving into, say, Mexico, we may have some third-party wholesale partnerships there, and we'd explore the demand from that perspective. And as we then turn on a site in that region, we can kind of explore the demand in terms of what our revenue and the basic KPIs would be like in terms of traffic demand, revenue, and conversion rate. From there, we can then obviously hire people who are experts in that space and in that region, and we have those boots on the ground to help us with translations, to help us with the nuances of what that region needs in terms of connecting with the customers. That will be a little bit different than how we connect with them, say in North America, US and Canada, obviously.
Ishneet, same question. What are some of those KPIs and things that you look at when you're evaluating new markets?
Okay, so for me, it's going to be a little different because I'm a one-person army over here, and I'm trying to establish in multiple regions. So what I'm trying to do is, so if you look at the situation, I'm sitting in a typical FMCG setup, and I'm trying to set up an e-commerce channel, which has completely different ways of working. So what I'm trying to do is bring about a whole organizational change here. So a part of my role also involves giving trainings. I'm training people, I'm talking about e-commerce, I'm telling them. So people are slowly getting enthused about it. So what I'm trying to do is effectively create a blueprint and get eventually e-com in everyone's KPIs, so that even if I don't have a team, or even if I do, to manage so many countries together, effectively I have a much bigger team without having one. So that's what I'm trying to do at the moment.
Gotcha, just building that blueprint.
Yes.
Gotcha. Diana, same question. What are some things that you look at while expanding at Bose?
So in terms of regional teams, we don't have dedicated teams by country, rather by region. And operationally, the teams are managing the countries they are in charge with. So in terms of KPIs, generic e-commerce KPIs to start with for the website, anything from site to order. While for operations, we have SLAs for the supporting functions across the companies. So as an example, shipping, for instance, is 24 hours for pick, pack, ship, and supporting functions are working towards the SLAs established.
Gotcha. Now, as you look at those different regions for Bose, what regions and subsequently like what countries within those regions really stand out for you that are really attractive that you're thinking about entering?
Yeah, so they are growing markets across the globe. US is growing at an incredible fast pace, and hearing other speakers today, it seems that we are not the only ones who acknowledge that the US growth. In Europe, smaller markets are growing much faster than the EU3, UK, France, and Germany, but incredible growth out of Italy, out of Netherlands. So the markets definitely require closer attention and making sure that we are absorbing the customer demand.
Gotcha. Ishneet, in the Gulf region, where's e-commerce booking? Like, what countries there stand out to you?
I think most important are two countries from different aspects. UAE from a matured customer in the sense of leading internet smartphone penetration. Having said that, what I talked about was there's a shift in people moving towards e-commerce that's happening as we speak. But the population size of UAE is pretty small. So what businesses are tempted to is go to KSA because of a big population size. So KSA is like the next India, where all the businesses are going because you have the mass.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And Brian, as you look at North America, and maybe even just beyond it, what are some of the top countries and regions that really stick out to G-Star?
I think for me, running North America, when I look at where we should go next and what makes sense for us from a regional perspective, I'm looking at Mexico, I'm looking at Colombia, because of the large influx of an emerging middle class to upper class. The volume of that region in terms of population density. We're also looking at the fact that we have some wholesale partnerships in those regions as well,
right.
And they perform really well. So we kind of think that it would make sense for some representation from a digital perspective to be in those spaces. As far as Colombia goes, same thing. I mean, a lot of tourist dollars are going to these regions, and it's becoming very much of a luxury spot. You're seeing a lot of luxury competitors popping up in these spaces, so it makes very much sense for us to be a part of that emerging growth in those regions.
Gotcha. Ishneet, in the countries that you mentioned, who's your most enthusiastic buyer?
So enthusiastic buyer, I'll have a different approach again to this question. So
okay.
the thing is, what's interesting over here is the channel instead of the buyer, because overall everyone's moving towards e-commerce. But in terms of the channel, what's interesting is omni-channel is the biggest channel that's evolving, because mall again is a part of the social fabric. So for example, Noon is the $1 billion venture which was announced in 2017
right.
by the founder of MR Properties. So MR Properties are the ones they build Burj Khalifa Dubai Mall. So after announcing Noon is operational and is growing at a massive rate. That's a pure play website. They already announced building a new mall, which is bigger than Dubai Mall, which will be e-commerce centric with Noon. It will be totally integrated with Noon.
Wow.
So nowhere have you seen announcement of an omni-channel new mall along with a pure play. So that's the interesting approach of this place.
Gotcha. Diana, same question. Who's your most enthusiastic buyer?
It varies from, we are starting with kids out of school or still in school, and going all the way up to the 67 years old customer. So depending on the product affinity also, I mean, younger generations definitely will be more attractive towards on-the-go personal speakers, headphones, while the more mature customer would look more into at-home solutions, lifestyle systems, and something we are also experimenting with, as we are a technology company, is in the wellness space, and with hair products, with sleep products, and naturally with this type of products we will address more towards that mature customer.
Right. And Brian, same question. Who do you think is your most enthusiastic buyer at G-Star?
I would say the male demo between the millennial age and the forgotten generation, which is Gen X, all the way up to kind of like the baby boom. The brand is about 30 years old, And we came around at a time when those demographics were coming online as far as recognizing the brand and what the value propositions are and how it connected with them. And they were like in their 20s and 30s, and now 30 years later, they're still loving the brand, they're still loving the values that we provide. And so I don't think we've done a great job in connecting with those customers that skew between 44 and 55. But now that I'm recognizing that more of them do exist and they're clamoring for more from us and a point of view and a direct access to our marketing, I'm making sure that we're including them in terms of our messaging and reach.
Gotcha. Before we turn it over to the audience for Q&A, just a quick lightning question. When you look at the next 3 to 5 years, what country do you think globally just has an astronomical trajectory in terms of e-commerce and potential growth?
I would say Africa. Africa, definitely. I mean, the guy that preceded us before kind of spoke to that. It's natural in terms of the population density again, and as well as an emerging middle class as quickly escalating, as well as technology coming online and the use of smartphones and how they're in some cases have 5G technology and we don't.
Right.
How does that even happen? But that is the case. But the fact that they're escalating really quickly and growing really quickly, I think that will be the next emerging market for us.
Gotcha. Ishneet, how about yourself?
I think it's going to be the MENA region, which includes Africa as well, because MENA region has diverse markets, one which has more population, one which has mature customers, high internet penetration. This is a region which has been not neglected, but where e-commerce penetration is the least. Right. So I think this is going to be the next growth sector.
Diana?
I would stay with Mexico. And for APAC, China, definitely, we still need to learn how to talk to the customer in China, and e-commerce doesn't really exist as it is across the globe over there. So learning how to win through the Alibaba platform and JD, that will going to be a challenge, but it's an opportunity.
Gotcha. Well, we have about 8 minutes left. Definitely want to open up questions to the audience. Does anyone have any questions?
As you guys expand into new markets and look at different audiences and obviously new competitive sets and different types of markets, and we think about how much content is necessary in a large case to run a modern e-com experience, both in terms of marketing leading up to the site and then content on the site. How are you guys thinking about meeting those needs? Are they all localized? Are you able to create content to use across platforms? Just thinking about how you guys are addressing some of the more nuanced challenges of actually presenting product via content in a really interesting way that's culturally relevant.
I'll take that. For example, we have a global calendar that we have content that spreads across internationally, and then we have more or less the opportunity to create content that's specific to a region. So when we're building content 6 months in advance, we kind of talk about the things that we need to supply to a specific region around retail holidays or significant events for them that we definitely need to market to that we haven't in the past, and obviously doesn't fit into an international bucket, but it fits into that regional bucket. So we've got the global content calendar, and then we've got a regional calendar that kind of fits into what's localized. So we kind of married the two because obviously the global speaks to any kind of new arrivals and our collection pieces that we want to cascade to everyone. And then there's the more localized messaging that we need to tweak and nuance for that local region as well.
I'll second that. So for example, for a J&J, we have a global calendar. We know which all products are coming in, if there's new NPIs, new product innovation that are coming in. But having said this, we have a regional agency which works on creating the content for the region. But the challenge that I'm facing at this moment is because Amazon wasn't there before, so the regional norm for content, overall norm in terms of keywords, short description, long description was the same, but in terms of the images, the way the images have been changed, the clean pack shots that have been made, they are different from what is the Amazon and accepted worldwide standards. So at this moment, as we speak, this is a challenge that I'm facing because this was the norm of the region, not just for J&J, for a P&G, for every other company. So we are working on changing this whole norm and probably, reworking on the complete content piece.
Diane?
And for us, product information, product content is globalized, but editorial content is regionalized. And it's mainly driven by sponsorships and regional influencers. For instance, in the Americas, NFL, it's a great driver. In Europe, Formula One is a great driver. So talking about Formula One in US will not going to bring the same value for customers as NFL.
Did we have any other questions?
I was going to ask, do you guys have, like, especially going into a new market, do you guys have like a checklist that you go down to? Like you mentioned a couple of things on product imagery, product information, or editorial content. Is there like this standard package when you go into a new market? And then how do you deal with that?
Okay, I'll take this. So as of now, I am working on making this checklist. So the thing is that e-commerce has been working in the MENA region in an organic way, and it hasn't been structured as well. So at this moment, I'm making the checklist. For example, for the content piece, I'm getting the feedback from different retail vendors, and I'm working on it. But as of now, we don't have this checklist, but it's my yearly goal that by this year, I should have one. So that when I enter 2020 and I'm expanding to other regions, I should have certain set of standardization with me.
I could layer on to that. So think of it as a circus coming to town and you're setting up a tent pole. And so these tent poles look exactly like wherever you go. And so for us, when we go into a market, we just set up shop. And then as a regional manager is hired, then we start layering on the pieces that make sense for that specific region. Sometimes we use all of the global product buys and that person will be the buyer for that region. And so the merchandise might tweak a little bit. For markets like Japan, we make products specifically for that region, whereas in other regions, they get the global buy. But for them, they prefer to have a certain look and feel and certain silhouette that they were looking for that we don't necessarily provide for other regions. So they wanted specific content made for them in terms of product. But we have this very templatized system, and then once it's set up, then we layer on the additional pieces and the third-party agencies that come in and help us improve our conversion and optimize our experience for the customer over time.
Diana, do you have anything to add?
I can actually give an example of a different way actually to launch products globally. One of the products probably you are familiar with is the in-ear buds. In the US, the go-to-market strategy was for sports. On the run, on the go, exercising in the gym. So the content, assets, imagery, and so on was focused towards sports. While in Japan, the customer has a different mindset, and it was more lifestyle. It was on the street, in the noise, walking towards the train station, and so assets were built for the product launch in Japan with a completely different mindset in terms of product usage.
Brian, Ishneet, Diana, thank you.
Thank you.
Give them a round of applause, everybody.